Yeah, buddy. What's up, Chris? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, Pete. How's life treating you today?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. I just got back from Atlanta. I was out. I guess that kind of counts as like maybe your neck of the woods, just kind of like due south from. You're always visiting our VP of Sales, Milena. She's out there. I should have just bumped up to Nashville, like give some high fives to Built, but next time. While folks are trickling in here, I would love to introduce our wonderful guest here. But welcome to Modern Sales Power Hour. I'm Pete Gazangi, and so we'll give everyone a few minutes to join. Well, while we're waiting, I'd love everyone to kind of get take a few moments to get familiar with the Zoom webinar interface. So we want you guys to interact as much as possible. Use the chat panel, leverage Q&A panel, so on and so forth. Chris, while folks are kind of joining us here, any big plans this weekend? Gonna mow the lawn. What's shaking?
Yeah, man, we're actually taking a long weekend. Any good husband or spouse, I promise to make long weekend plans for the fall for us to go away and do something as a family, and fell a little short of meeting those expectations. So as you can
We
imagine,
call that an improvement area.
yeah.
We're gonna be positive.
Yeah, definitely an improvement area. However, my wife, being a champ, found a way around it. So we're actually she's taking our son. We have a 4.5-year-old little guy. She's taking him to our in-laws tomorrow, and we're gonna have a kid-free weekend.
I love it. I love it. So and so that's going to involve, maybe going out a little bit. I think you said earlier we got some football plans. Is that going on?
Yeah, you mentioned Atlanta. I'm based out of Nashville. If you can't tell, I'm definitely from the South with my Southern accent. Most people say Texas, but am based in Nashville, born and raised, and went to college at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. It's been a painful 15 years, but we are hopefully on the up and up, and we have a 11 o'clock game against LSU tomorrow. So we're going to be tailgating and enjoying hopefully another Tennessee win.
I love it. This should be fantastic. Here in San Francisco, we got Fleet Week going on. So it's actually crazy. The Blue Angels have been flying all over the city. And I was on a walking one-on-one yesterday, and it's absolutely ear splitting. So I'm going to be taking my son, my 5-year-old, who's just a little bit ahead of your munchkin. We're gonna be checking out crazy jets flying all over the bay this weekend. So that should be fun. Awesome. So let's get this party started. Okay. You guys are in for a treat. Chris has been around the block many times. That's not a backhanded compliment there, Chris. We're seasoned sales leader, right? So for folks who are not familiar, Power Hour is hosted by Modern Sales Pros. MSP is the world's largest revenue leadership community for those in sales management, sales and revenue operations, sales development, and related disciplines. And the community's mission is to create an environment for our 27,000 and growing members to answer questions they struggle to solve on their own, help them see around corners they may not know about. And the way that we do that is through great live sessions like this with awesome people like Chris, and like you're about to experience here today. Also our online forum, which is really fantastic. It's great for asynchronous Q&A. You got a question, an itch you need scratched, you got a question you need answered. You've got 25,000 people in that forum who are happy to jump all over your open question there. And of course, in-person events too. We had a super rad Dreamforce happy hour last month. That was amazing. 1,500 folks signed up for this. I think we had probably 600 folks who kind of filtered throughout the evening. People were super pumped on it. They said it was their favorite event at Dreamforce. It was pretty rad. So folks who were not previously in the community, we're going to go ahead and add you here. Before we get started, just a couple of reminders. So Power Hour is a unique format. There's not really we're not going to be talking through a deck or a piece of content or whatever. We're just going to be shooting the breeze with Chris here, talking sales nerdery, talking sales. And so the idea here is that you're here to learn. If you this is Q&A, we want there to be Q&A. Ask your questions, use the chat tab, use the Q&A tab. All the options we'll be bird dogging it there. So with that, let's go ahead and head into some introductions here. I'll make mine super quick. I'm Pete Kazanji. I'm one of the founders of Atrium. We make data-driven sales management software. It's software that exists to help sales managers, leaders, and reps use metrics to improve the performance of their teams. One of the things that's super cool about Atrium is it takes 5 minutes to set up with a read-only connection to your Salesforce CRM. And within 5 minutes, Atrium will show you how your reps are performing across hundreds of metrics. So that's what we work on here at Atrium. Before that, I started a software company called TalentBin. Is a recruiting software company that was bought by Monster Worldwide in 2014. After that, I wrote a little book on startup sales called Founding Sales, and then started Modern Sales Pros. So I do think a little bit about sales, which something I have in common with my illustrious colleague here, Chris. Chris, you want to tell people a little bit about what you spend your time doing here at Built, and then maybe a little bit of like background on what you did at Vantiv and Worldpay as well?
Yeah, be happy to. Really excited to spend the afternoon with you, Pete, and the rest of the team.
Thanks.
Of course. And so I've been with Built now for 6 months. It's interesting. Prior to joining Built to help scale our sales organization, I had never worked in an office, and so I'd always been a remote leader. And it just so happened Built, it was a perfect fit for me. 2 miles from my house, so the only commute I have is a 7-minute.
Love it.
Ride in every day, and I never enjoyed going into the office on a daily basis. It was really nice to kind of walk in and experience what maybe post-COVID looks like. Almost like it never existed. And your
sales team is right there in downtown Nashville, if I recall correctly. Am I remember that right, or did you guys move a little bit?
Yeah, we moved. We are out just off Grassmere, which is not too far from the airport, kind of between, I would say, Nashville and Brentwood off 65, if you're familiar with the area. But we have the majority of our operations are based here in Nashville. We do have offices in New York and Boise, but we have about 85% of our people that are based here in Nashville, and I would say 50% are in the office on a daily basis.
I love it. All right, now you're making me jealous. I'm going to come out to Nashville, hang out. One of my things I've been kind of KPIing myself on is making sure that I'm on the road at least 1 or 2 weeks a month. I just got back from Atlanta. We have another trip at the end of October to Boston, so got to get Nashville on the agenda. And then what did you work on before Built?
Yeah, before Built, I was in the payment space, and I actually was one of the last employees hired for Fifth Third Bank prior to Advent International buying controlling interest of what became Fifth Third Processing Solutions, a payment Midwest payments provider that Fifth Third had built out within the bank. They sold off, post-banking crisis or post-financial crisis, and ultimately we ended up, I didn't realize it at the time, but we were a 40-year-old startup with a few hundred people, and over the course of investment and also growing organically, we went public as Vantiv in 2013, IPO'd at $17 a share. We grew through acquisition, and ultimately became the U.S.'s largest payments provider in 2017. And then 2018, we acquired Worldpay and took on their name because they were internationally known, and became the world's largest acquirer and then within 5 or 6 months post Worldpay acquisition, FIS based out of Jacksonville. I believe they're considered the largest fintech company in the world. They purchased us right before the pandemic, and so I spent 2 years working with FIS and helping to integrate Worldpay and join and being a part of an 80,000 employee company.
I love it. So usually this is interesting. So I forgot about that, but now that you're refreshing my memory, I'm like, oh, that's right. Chris did payments for forever. But now you're doing like construction and payments, which I mean, actually maybe you can share a little bit about like what Built does and the size of the sales organization so everyone can kind of understand. But it's like kind of a fun little like man bear pig of like SaaS software plus payments, but like for the, for the construction space. So maybe you can kind of give us the quick elevator pitch on that.
Yeah, it's when I first got introduced to Built and met the executive team, phenomenally talented, bright, and I immediately connected with their vision. And ultimately, they were taking a very offline, disjointed,
Hmm.
Excel-based construction loan draw administration process and taking it online and reducing draw time, increasing efficiencies, capacity, and we're really disrupting the market. And it was a niche market that ultimately, by the time I think Chase, Andrew SOARs, Scott SOARs started, the three co-founders in 2014 and really started to hit stride in 17 and 18, we're
Yeah.
able to, now we have 42 of the top 100 lenders on our, what we call construction loan administration platform. And
Yeah.
then, in the last 2 years, we built attachments on top of that to
Uh-huh.
support the needs of our customers, whether it be inspections technology, lien waivers, which was an acquisition,
Yep.
title search, and have been very successful in being able to go out to market, disrupt a new be a disruptor, grab new logos, and then expand with services.
Yeah. I'm okay. Yeah. Thank you for refreshing my memory. Like now it's making sense. Like the platform place is like, hey, get the construction loan behaviors going on here, and then start adding like modules on top of it. I'm excited to talk about some of the cross-selling stuff there, because obviously that's like its own kind of like beast in and of itself. How big is the Built sales organization right now?
Yeah, so we have approximately 50 sellers representing our lending channel. And we
Okay.
have segments, it's kind of a misleading. We have enterprise, mid-market, and SMB.
Yep.
And the majority of our revenue is driven out of enterprise. And we consider our enterprise team to be focused on the top 150 construction lenders across the US, and
Yep.
mid-market 151 to 750, and then 750 and below our
Yep.
SMB, but it's still an enterprise software sell.
Yep.
So I've been on a mission to have the nomenclature tweaked a little bit to be more representative to our sales motion.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. So like not a small sales organization, and of course now you guys actually are selling multiple solutions as well, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit later. But yeah, one of the things that I wanted to get started with, because I most of my background has been in selling to pretty like fairly sophisticated audiences. Like use Atrium as an example. We sell to it's like a two-legged sale. We got the business, so like sales management, sales leadership, SDR management, and leadership, and then usually like sales operations is involved in some sort of capacity, because like they're the person who's historically an internal vendor for helping sales managers use metrics and data. I've never sold to like less technical audiences. And so yeah, I would love to kind of like get your thoughts on like what are the ways of kind of like navigating that when you're taking something that, like, when you're taking an industry that's maybe a little sleepy, maybe a little bit like used to how they're used to doing it, and you're showing up with your like newfangled wizardry and what have you, and like ultimately it's going to make their lives easier, because like you have existing customers who like really get it, and it helps their business. But people don't want to change, especially people who don't have a proclivity to like like trying out the hot new thing or whatever. What are some of the things that you would recommend to folks who are attacking like less technical audiences like that?
I think in a former life, I don't know, I did something wrong. I guess I'm a glutton
Uh-oh.
for punishment. I go into the payment space where a lot of the,
Oh,
new technology, is we're selling to non-technical buyers in many
good
cases.
point.
Especially, so that was the world in which I grew up in, if you will. And then,
Mhm.
being built and selling into whether it be loan administrator, loan originators, or, chief lending officer, chief credit officer. What we had to finally, two things we had to be able to do was one, show, uh, uh, the proof of concept and the ROI that the economics
Yep.
supported, the investment in the software. And then
Mhm.
as we started to gain momentum and understand how to talk to each persona that existed
Yep.
within the bank.
Yep.
Sally, who had been working out of Excel for 30 years, the
Yep.
discussion that we had, and who is afraid that this technology may eliminate her job, the
Yep.
discussion there is much different than the discussion we have with the leader of that team or the chief
Sure.
lending officer. And so being able to navigate those discussions and knowing when to pull out the different value propositions that we've created per persona or line of business within the bank
Yeah.
has been pivotal, but also something that, our chief revenue officer was really big on,
Mhm.
and we picked up, I picked up on immediately because I understood exactly what he was saying. He was like, we're not selling software, we're selling outcomes.
Outcomes. Yeah.
And
Yep.
and, and especially true as you move up into the, economic buyer or the C-suite.
Yeah. They don't care about features.
Yeah, they're looking for business outcomes. And
Yep.
so what we are really tried to be cognizant of is the fact that we need champions, influencers,
Mhm.
at the grassroots level, but we also need, our economic buyers, our champions at the top of the house, that understand the business outcomes that we're delivering.
Yeah, and I would imagine this is the case because your team primarily sells built for lenders, right? So you're talking to actually this must be really interesting in you guys' organization, especially for your enablement team, is like you got your team talking to like lenders, and then you've got like the sub personas within there, like Sally or Bobby who's been doing their thing the way they've been doing their thing or whatever, like they don't want to upset the apple cart. Then we've got the bean counters and what have you, and like they need certain things, but like these guys all talk math for the most part. And then we've got built for construction over here, right, who are like the construction, I mean, not to make not to make stereotypes or whatever, but like it's kind of like the joke that we say about what we do with Atrium is like people don't get into sales in order to like use an abacus or like do math or whatever. Like they're they come up from being an AE or because they're like a good communicator, they're a good like relationship builder, et cetera, et cetera. And so like we need to what we say we do is like we help those folks manage by metric, even though like being analytical is like not core to their behavior. People get into construction not because they're like want to do like, hey, I'm really excited about like administering construction loans, let's get into construction. And so I would imagine that like yeah, like navigating those conversations is like, yeah, you guys have a ton of personas. How does your enablement team, like you guys have an enablement team, if I recall correctly, like there must be like a very serious matrix of like talk tracks for each of those personas. How do they kind of help both of these teams do that?
Yeah, it's bifurcated. We call it built for lending today and built for construction, and we have very unique value proposition personas. But what we try to do, and I think we do a really good job in most cases, is ultimately, the real, what Chase, our CEO, has always kind of the way he's explaining it, the rail cart or the railroad is the
Yep.
lenders. And the
Yep.
rail carts, the services, the attachments are the builder borrows,
Mhm.
and contractor subs. And so if we can get the lender
Mhm.
on board and also then move downstream to builder, bar, developer, contractor.
Yep.
And, I've use this analogy, and some agree, some disagree. It's okay. But my dad, when, technology and iPhones first started coming out, very
Mhm.
resistant. Now, and I used to, it was hard to get him, to
Mhm.
connect, and, having a grandson changed that too. Don't get me wrong. But, my
I'll
dad
do it.
now, my dad now has a Facebook portal. He has an iPhone. He knows how to use it. So does,
Right.
so I think the fear of technology, and also I think the digital transformation that happened during COVID, we
Mhm.
had, probably a 5 to 10 year digital transformation in 18 months as a result
Yeah.
of COVID. So I think those two things kind of coming together, have helped. And then anytime you say, all right, if you're unwilling to use the platform, as a builder, it's going to
Yeah.
take you 9 days to get that draw disbursement. Or
Yeah.
if you use our platform, it's going to take you 4.5 days. So are you willing to at least use the platform or try the platform to get your money, twice as fast? And
Yeah.
so, and then we started to, go out and work with inspectors,
Mhm.
and help them use our technology,
Hmm.
and just increase their efficiency and how they, run an inspection and interact with the bank. And it just provides an overall better experience, more efficient experience. And, it's just, it's a unique, that's why I joined Bill. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
it's a collaboration hub.
Nice. Well, I think that's actually a really interesting point, because I had forgotten this about Build's business, is that like it's kind of the beginnings of like a two-sided marketplace, right? Where you've got like the lenders on one side, the rail tracks, right? And then of course like the folks who need like lending over here. And that for the most part, at least as you were describing this earlier, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like that if you get the lenders on, these guys are going to come, right? Because like these guys really, like construction folks really need money, right? They like, you can't finance a construction thing like just, on your own. So getting these, so like your team getting these guys on to build is really important for the built for the construction folks to be able to sell these guys, because if the financial institutions are already online, like on the Bill platform, it's like, oh, you imagine the discovery call, like, who do you guys work with? Oh, we work with XYZ bank or whatever. It's like, oh, well, that like they're already on like, built for lending over here. We should get you on that. How does that, like, given the fact that like you guys on built for lending side, like closing these guys, right, to get them on the platform, has a material impact on win rates and kind of like what's happening over here? How does, like, is there collaboration that goes on there?
Yeah.
Is it more just like you guys are just focused on like getting as many like rail tracks going as possible, or like how does that, like, is there a specific alignment around that, like we're going to target these banks that are in these regions and then you guys are going to go after the construction folks that are in those regions? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's unique. When I, came over from payments and having a net, at times a negative net promoter score, right? And coming to Bill and having,
Right.
a 40 plus net promoter score.
Oh wow.
And then I remember the first week I joined Bill, I think it was 2 days in, I had a call with a builder who,
Yep.
he had referred us to a lender and said,
Okay.
hey, I like doing business with you. You're actually 25%, you get 25 basis points cheaper on your rate. But if you're not going to use Built, I don't want to, I'm not going to continue to do business with it because it's just so much more efficient.
Too big of a pain in the ass. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I called him. I'm like, hey man, I'm new. The SVP of sales leading this channel. I want to better understand, why this is so attractive and how much of an impact it has on your business. And, just hearing that experience, and we hear that and see that quite a bit where we have that cross pollination or cross referral internally.
Mhm.
where we're leveraging each other's, what I would say internal customer bases, to sell,
Yeah.
to cross-sell products.
Got it. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit more about like the cross-selling of the products piece, because like I remember when we were acquired by Monster, my last software company, Talent Bin, like cross-selling is really tough, right? Because you've got, all it does is it adds like a bunch more complexity to the sale for the reps. Because like, I mean, think about like what we already got to do. You were talking about this earlier, like how many different personas do we have that we're talking to? We're talking to the end user, we're talking to like this person right here, we're talking to the chief lending officer, et cetera, et cetera. So then, and then there's, the pain points associated that those folks have that then a given product solves. So then we add in like another product that probably solves different pain points than the other one, right? And all of a sudden it just got like way more complex. So what are some of the recommendations and kind of things that like are you guys cross-selling to the lender side, or is it more on the construction side where the multi-product selling is happening?
Both, and I would say
Okay.
we're doing more cross-selling on the lender side.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, when you think about the products, and it is so, and I'll throw another wrinkle in real quick. When you think of someone like Fifth Third, for example, super regional bank, they have a commercial real estate line of business. They have what we would call a home builder, and then consumer, and there are three complete different groups that are involved in the buying process. Did three different economic buyers, champions, influencers. The very seldomly connect other than at procurement or at the CEO. So you're essentially, let's say we do sell our construction loan administrative software to the consumer side of the house, in Fifth Third. When we want to and have engaged with the commercial real estate team, they don't know each other, they don't talk to each other. It's almost a net new logo sell in many ways. And then you add in the fact that we do have services and attachments, like we have inspections, we have contractor management and acceptance that we're selling, trying to expand on already the relationship we have with consumer while we're trying to sell net new to CRE. So it becomes incredibly complicated. And so that's where, when I came in, we had already built out some strategic account planning muscle, but really building out strategic account plans, trying to understand who owns the account, what subject matter experts, how do we leverage customer success, how do we manage QBRs, MBRs, depending upon the size of the client, to update product roadmaps, to gain deeper access into the account and build stronger relationships. And so it's not a one size fits all. At least I haven't been able to figure that piece out yet, or we have not. But we made considerable gains in being able to kind of cross matrix the upsell, cross sell.
Yeah, the big thing that we saw at Monster, and of course, Monster was like a fairly scaled sales organization, a little like kind of long in the tooth, but I think that there are still kind of good lessons there. I think one of the things that we found that was like really important is like, is just treating any new product like you're, and this is also like when you're selling in a new segment. So like treating any new product that you're going to start cross-selling, kind of like, if you think all the way back in the day to like when Built was selling Built for lenders for like the very first time, right? When you don't have that many. And so it's not just like, oh, we're going to drop it in everyone's bag and it's just like automatically going to happen. It's like, no. Like you're probably going to start with like a couple people and we got to get some wins on the board, right? And like, because then what we're going to do is we're going to turn around and be like, see, look at that. Look at Bobby's extra commission that he's getting, right? Because he was cross-selling lien waivers or cross-selling native or whatever. And then people are like, oh, okay, got it. All right. This is possible, right? It is not, it's not this like abstract thing. And then we take those initial wins and then we go around to everybody else and we like celebrate them. It's like, hey, hey, Susie, let's talk about in sales team meeting about how you ran this deal, right? Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So like she's on stage right now. She's getting her, 15 minutes there and she, et cetera. And like, you kind of got to start it rolling, right? Versus just, throwing it in and being like, all right, everyone start selling. So that's like one thing there is like treat it as a campaign itself. The other thing too, is that you really gotta, unless you put it in the comp plan, it's like you're gonna have a product marketer or a product manager being like, you gotta sell my stuff, you gotta sell my stuff, you gotta sell my stuff, and they're like, sure, we're totally gonna, and then they're immediately gonna go back to the thing that they're used to doing, because like, and you can't blame them, right? Like, why do I like sales is hard? Why would I not do the thing that I'm used to doing? So you want to have the carrot there, which is like, oh, okay, cool. Like here's, it's in our commission plan. You need to have the stick as well, which is, by the way, if you don't sell this much net new XYZ, here's the ramifications associated with it. And then oftentimes when you're comping for it, do it in a way that's like over generous, like kind of obnoxiously so, almost to like trick people into doing it, where it's like, oh man, this is awesome, I love this. You're like, cool, yeah, just get in there, because in 6 months, like the rate's going down.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. The last one we used for kind of the last example for our services and attachments. So we would pay a certain percentage for our construction loan administrative software, and any service or attachment we would pay another 1.5% or 2%.
Love it.
And so that helped also, to your point, drive adoption, because it compensates, drives behaviors.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, exactly. But it needs to be like, I don't know, here we're talking about football, like you gotta, you gotta swarm the box, right? It's got to be all of it, right? It can't just be like one. It's just like we gotta be all the way around it. The other way of doing this too, like comping it, spiffing it. The other thing that can be very effective is like training wheels. And what I mean by that is like overlay specialists. That's actually what my team was at Monster. So the 15 account executives that we had at Atrium, at Talent Bin, they then became overlay specialists. And it's pretty standard. Like my buddy Roy and Dominic, the gentleman who started Chorus, when Chorus was acquired by ZoomInfo, the Chorus reps became overlays for ZI. And you don't want to do that forever, but if you don't do it to start, it's typically like a bad scene. Like we actually had this problem at Monster a little bit, where the concern was like the finance types were like, hey, we don't want to double comp on a deal, and so the concern was like, hey, we want to have the mainline reps do as much of this selling on their own as possible. And then, but then the response to that is like, that ends up kind of being like this like false mirage, where you think you're going to get all this incremental revenue that's just like, it's pure incremental. There's no incremental cost of sales or whatever. But if you don't invest sufficiently in helping those reps get to success, and that doesn't mean just like bringing them into a conference room and doing a training or whatever, be like, okay, cool, ta-da, you're ready to sell Talent Bin, or you're ready to sell lien waivers or whatever. It's like, hey, bring Frankie onto your call. He's really nice. He knows, lien waivers in and out, right? You're like, he's going to be the one doing the demo or doing the disco for that or whatever. Eventually you're going to do it, right? But in the meantime, like, don't be afraid of Frankie. Bring him on. He's going to help you close more business. He's going to help you close deals. and then almost like incentivizing that can be very powerful as well. So back at Monster, we were doing this thing. I got yelled at about this. We had a bunch of reps who were like doing their own demos solo, but they weren't really like certified on doing talent bin demos. So what we were doing was like under the table Amazon gift card spiffs for overlay like deal registration. It's almost like using it as almost kind of like using it as a channel, like deal registration and like in channel. And so because then people were like, oh, this is great, I get this like $50 Amazon gift card, and somebody shows up to my call to help facilitate it. And of course now they're learning while they're on that call there. And so it's like, and then over a year now you've got like the snowball rolling downhill. Those are some of the things that were really impactful for us. And you guys have like two new products that you guys have acquired. Actually, when was the Lien Waivers acquisition?
Lien Waivers, I believe, was in 2017. And
oh, okay, that was a while ago.
Yeah, and Native was acquired 2 months ago.
Oh, okay, got it. But like this is probably going to be something that's going to continue on in the future, given the fact that you guys are like platformizing. So probably getting good at that cross-selling behavior will be like a really important thing going forward, right?
I have to say, man, I'm incredibly proud of what the built team has built in terms of process, and whether it be enablement or just overall onboarding and ramping, our account executives. When you think about, launching a new product, we already have a certification process that our reps go through. We have, obviously training. We have SMEs that help support the kickoff. We do a beta, what we call GARD, General Availability Requirement document, that we have everybody go through. And ultimately, we then are working, and we're starting to add new wrinkles to where, SMEs are assigned as well as we go to market. And then we're putting incentives, just fun incentives around the product after we do our A/B testing and go to GA to create some energy and excitement. And it's, one of the things, and you've probably, found this or read in studies, most people, when you ask what they want for a reward, they'll say money. But what we've found over time, that experiences or prizes, if you will, drive more behavior than cash. And so,
it's just like cash just turns into like a number in your bank account, right?
Yeah. And so, those things are, and then we also have, are starting to implement 60-day follow-up training. Hey, what did we learn? What's the use case? What's working, what's not working, and really trying to fail fast and fail forward, and leverage that. And we're doing a win-loss analysis on a monthly basis, whether it be new products, new deals, to really up level the talent. And not in a situation, old school dressing people down for losing a deal. It's more in the spirit of, hey, what could we have done differently? What did we do really well?
Let's do better next time.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting about the incentives and the kind of experience stuff, because we actually have a portfolio mate. So one of our investors is a fund called Bullpen, and they're also investors in a company called Blueboard that does recognition incentives and things like that. The funny thing was, like, they kind of started in HR, and then COVID did this really kind of cool thing for them where like all of a sudden, like President's Club kind of like was like, oh, what are we going to do for President's Club? Like, you can't travel anywhere. This is kind of weird. And so they started doing like virtual or like they kind of pivoted their business to facilitate like virtual President's Club, which ended up kind of like being this accidental innovation where they're like, Because I mean, look, when you're like old, when you're like an old dog with like few new tricks like you and me, the notion of like flying to Cabo and like, punching yourself in the liver for 4 days or whatever, that's a little less attractive when you're like 40 something than it is when you're like, 20 something in your early 30s or whatever. And so what Blueboard realizes that they could like, you could like virtualize that and be like, hey, here's a situation. We're going to do like we're going to have a smaller president's club where, we'll get together, we're going to like do fun things with each other, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to give you this money that you can then turn into experiences so you can take your spouse or your significant other to something else that like, maybe isn't this, maybe isn't the same as like, punching yourself in the liver in Cabo for 4 days. What are some of the experiential stuff that you guys focus in on there in order to kind of like make that more motivational?
We're just starting here. But what
Okay, neat.
historically I've done in the past is ultimately, having whether it be a weekend trip, weekend getaway,
Love it.
and one of the things that, and we develop plans as we think about going into next year, all of my leaders, I ask every year, what are 3 developmental goals that you want professionally? What are 3 that you want personally? And,
Sure.
a lot of times you'll get, I want to take my daughter to Europe, or I
Sure.
want to do, A, B, or C. And so we'll incorporate the comparable experience for those individuals to have the opportunity to earn that through an
Love it.
incentive. And so because we can't obviously take on the liability to send, someone and
Sure.
their daughter to Europe, but we can put a comparable incentive out there where they can go and do that. And, it's funny, whether we gave away a 57-inch or 65-inch flat screen TV or a Louis Vuitton or purse,
Whatever. Yeah.
the reps most likely could afford either one of those. But the fact that maybe
Yeah, it's cool.
that Pete you wanted a Louis Vuitton purse for your, you wanted it, but your wife wouldn't let you buy it, and you want it, so she couldn't tell you couldn't buy it, right?
Yeah,
Or
exactly. Because Bill bought it for me. Hey,
that's
look
right.
at
That's right.
that. Oh man, I love that. That's such a cool idea. Like, and actually you're making me so kind of 2 things to kind of comment on there. One is that one of my favorite books, sales management books, is called 5 Secrets of the Sales Coach. It's written by Corey Bray and Hillman Sori. Actually, maybe we can drop into the chat if people want to get a copy of it. We have a sign up page for it. But one of the things that they talk about in their kind of like coach management and coaching framework is what you're discussing, Chris, which is like crystallizing like the personal upside. It's very much like medic, right? Where or like force management, where there's like, hey, what is the negative implication of not doing this, like not changing your behavior? What is the positive benefits, right, of changing your behavior? Now we do this as sellers all the time, right? Where it's like, hey, hey Frank, right now it takes you 9 days to get the draw on that loan. I imagine that probably puts a hitch in the giddy up of your business. Like, what are the impacts of that? Oh, well, sometimes my guys, I can't pay them or whatever. They have to get picked up on another job, and then like I'm delayed and so on and so forth. And it's like delays and delays and delays and delays. Oh, okay, got it. Wow, that sounds like really a big problem there. And like if you just get that money within like 24 hours, like how would that change things? Like very basic stuff, right? Like it's like sales 101, right? But now flip that around and do it with your account executives, right? Where it's like, hey, what do you want to do? Oh man, I'm sitting under like 20 grand of college debt or whatever. Oh, okay, got it. Currently, how long is it like on your current kind of plan? How long is that going to take you to pay off? Oh, it's going to take me X amount of time. Okay, got it. Well, what if you're able to accelerate that? Yeah, I mean, that would be really impactful. Or the positive benefit could be like, I want a Louis Vuitton purse, right?
Yeah.
But like crystallizing that, so when they're sitting there, right, when it's like 5:30 p.m., right, or it's like 6 p.m. and they're like, man, I kind of want to knock off, and like the other folks are like going to the bar right now, but they're looking at their inbox or they're looking at their Python. They're like, oh man, like 10 of my ops haven't been touched in like 7 days. Shit, right? Like you want them to be like, you know what? I want that Louis Vuitton purse, or like, you know what? I want that M3 Beamer, or you know what? Like I want to take my daughter to Europe or whatever, and then you buckle down and you like, touch those ops across like the next 60 minutes or whatever, and like, motivate that incremental output. And this is one of the things as I've gotten better as a sales manager and a leader, is realizing that management itself is a lot of sales behavior, which is funny because like you oftentimes don't think about it. Like we're pretty good sellers when we're talking to prospects, and then you turn around and you're like talking to one of your reps and you're just like, do it this way, right? Versus like, hey, maybe I should sell the concept of like doing it this way, right?
I'll never forget when I was at I think I can't remember if Vantiv or Worldpay, but I came off the stage delivering a keynote for SKO, had a team of 400, and one of the reps came up to me, and I was trying to give a motivational speech. Thought I hit a home run, right? And comes up and he's like, it must be nice not carrying a bag anymore. And I was like,
oh, yikes.
yeah. I luckily was restrained in my comment, and I said, man, I said, I can tell you I sell more today than I ever sold in my life as an individual contributor.
Fully.
And that's a illustrative point to what you just made. It's you're constantly selling.
Dude, fully. Yeah. And it's not just with your reps, right? Because this is the other thing is, as you become a leader, and this is something we actually, we host a recurring sales leadership boot camp. It's a virtual boot camp that's put on by, it's a half day virtual boot camp put on by Richard Harris. We sponsor it. It's actually like our customers can go to it, but also prospects can go to it as well. And a big thing in being a sales leader, less so in like being a direct line sales manager, but in being a sales leader is like, managing to the side, like good relationships with marketing, good relationships with customer success, managing up, right, to, CEO, founder, whatever, doing the same thing with like the board, et cetera. Like, and all of those are like sales conversations, right? Like, you're trying to change somebody's behavior over here in marketing. Are you going to come off the top rope and just be like, you need to do it this way because I have an awesome haircut because I'm Chris Copeland? No, you're going to be like, hey, what's in it for them, right? Like, what's in it for them? How's it going to make their life easier? How's it going to help them hit their OKRs? How's it going to help you do it? How's it going to make the equity of the business worth more for everybody? All of those sort of things versus just like, hey, you need to do this thing. And I think the more that we can remember that, the better off folks will, be. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, the old joke about like, you'll get more flies with honey. I mean, that's definitely true, but it's also like the selling behavior as well. Like, making it clear to them why it's in it for them. Like, be nice about it too. But then there's like the selling piece of like revealing to them through like their own discovery, like, oh, like what would be the negative implications if like, we continue to have low MQL conversion rates because of like poor quality opportunities being passed over here. All right.
Yeah.
Those sort of things.
Yeah, for sure. I had no intention of going into sales. I had a psychology, I got a psychology degree. I took a year off.
Perfect.
Before I had no idea how helpful and beneficial it would be. And, I was qualified to make minimum wage as a social worker. And I was like, all right, that's not going to cut it. So I landed in sales, and, it was a natural fit for me. But going back to that point of just, better understanding, who and what we're selling. And, and I'm a firm believer that you're winning hearts and minds. And,
Mhm.
you know, and ultimately that as you're leading leaders, that's ultimately going to be whether you win or you lose, as a
Mhm.
team. Because if you have everybody bought in and on the same page and working, you know, rowing in the same direction to use that,
Yep.
you know, then you're going to be in a good spot. But if you
Yep.
don't have that and you're disconnected, it's going to be incredibly challenged to get basically anything done.
Yeah, a couple things that kind of to your remarks there. I'm actually reading right now a book called Endurance. It's about the Ernest Shackleton's expedition to the South Pole in like 1913 or whatever. And like he's kind of an example of that like charismatic, inspirational leader that kind of like gets all the I forget where I learned this metaphor, but it's like it's not about like when you're changing behaviors in an organization, it's not about like turning a battleship. People always say like, oh, it's like turning an aircraft carrier, turning a battleship. And I forget who kind of came up with this metaphor, but I love it. It's like, no. It's actually turning 1,000 kayakers in the shape of a battleship.
Yeah, no,
Just
I like
right,
it.
because it's not like you can't just like grab the tiller and go like this and it takes a while. It's like no, we got 1,000. And so like, you know, guiding all those, and that's all like, you know, 1,000 different hearts and minds. And then moreover, anyone who's kind of like out of step there was like, well, that guy's still rowing in that direction, I guess maybe that means that I don't have to. And so like no, come on over here, you're like, you know, spreading a mind virus across everyone. So that's something like I'm really enjoying like that inspirational leadership. Yeah, that shackled or the endurance book I'm really liking. The other thing, and I think you might appreciate this, actually another Power Hour guest, Emily Carpenter, VP of Sales at Heap Analytics. She's absolutely fantastic. She's also a new mom. And one of the things that I've found is that as a parent with a 5-year-old, being a parent has really helped me up level my my management game. And what I mean by that is because like you can't just tell like a 4-year-old to like do this thing right here, right? And like or like yell at them or whatever. Like it's just going to turn into a disaster, right? Versus kind of like guiding them. And so I think that like that is something that's really helped me appreciate like, you know, managing 24-year-olds, managing 28-year-olds, like this junior staff, right? But like essentially like you can't just like tell someone how to do something. It's like you got to guide them in the right direction. You got to repeat it. It can't be like, what do you want to do? It's like, hey, do we want waffles or do we want pancakes? Right? It's you know, all those sort of things. How like does that align with your experience? What's your
Oh man,
what's your kiddo's name? I forget.
his name's Palmer. He's 4.5, and I'll joke with my sales team. We have a sales pit that we call, as we affectionately call it. And I'm like, I'm gonna put my 4-year-old son in the middle of the pit, and I'm gonna give him his iPad, which I swore I would never do. But he has an iPad. I'm gonna be like, you talk him down off that iPad without him having a meltdown. You have mastered negotiation.
There you go. Right. And that's not just sales management, that's like essentially selling, right?
Yeah.
Like the yeah, that yeah, that's something that yeah, that's been a big change for me. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is I totally get you on like the motivational impacts of experiences. We actually had this recently. So one of our board members is a gentleman named Brett Queener. He used to lead sales operations at Salesforce a long time ago. And then you know, he ran a bunch of like the different parts of the business at Salesforce. But we had this really huge renewal recently. It's very exciting. We have this wonderful customer called Grin. They make amazing influencer management software. So like all the people on like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and so on and so forth, where like if you're some sort of merchant or whatever, and you want to be able to like run a campaign where you've got like, you know, 200 of these folks talking about your product or whatever, like it's a huge pain in the ass to manage. These guys make software to manage it. And obviously this is like this industry is blowing up because of like all the people on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and I don't know, maybe they'll support LinkedIn eventually. But So, had this really important renewal with them. They've been blowing up like crazy. I think at this point they have like 100 SDRs and like 80 AEs or whatever. It's just absolutely like they're on their way to going public. But this was a really critical renewal for us. What we ended up and because it's like such a celebrated thing, ended up taking sending the customer success manager on it, like send him on a weekend in Miami Beach. The AE who's been working on it, send him on a trip to Napa. Ends up being like less than $1,000 each, right? Like just shy of that. But like when you're talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars of like enterprise software, it's like really worth it. And then moreover, you're to the point about like like making an example of something, like holding up a really great exemplar, so everyone else is like, oh wow. You really want to do that in a situation where there's like, this is our biggest renewal ever, actually biggest contract ever, and so like now you want to make that like, oh yeah, duh, like yeah, we do this like just like falling out of bed, right? But when the first one though, you really got to be like, oh, right. So then people are like, oh yeah, we can do that. All
Yeah.
right, we can do that.
Yeah, we've kind of planted our flag. We're here. And that's what
Yeah.
it's signaling.
Yeah. What if have you guys done any sort of stuff like that where you like takes a behavior that like was really, really important and then like held it up and like celebrated it, either through, recognition and rewards or kind of other approaches?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a gong in the sales
I
floor.
love it. We don't, and I feel like a bad sales leader. I got to fix that.
Yeah, man, I thought it was a little. I'd never had one. Obviously, I'd never worked in an office, and I was like,
Oh yeah, good point.
I was like, this is a little cheesy. But then, we start selling some deals and the gong starts ringing and everybody starts clapping. And then you get, the CEO coming in. Hey, what's the deal? Was it XYZ? Yeah, it was. And everybody's high-fiving. And
Yeah.
it's a great experience.
I love that. I was actually, yes. We had one at my last software. Okay, you've inspired me. I'm going to get one. We had one at my last software company and it wasn't that big. Right now, what we have is like, we have a virtual gong where I think actually the subject line on the email that goes out when somebody wins an op, it says like bang the gong. I think it does. And then we do the same thing with troops, right? So it like shoots it out to Slack or whatever, which is good, right? Like it's fine. And like and then there's like a big party on that email thread. People are like, yeah, high five, like good job, et cetera, et cetera. And like that's all well and good, but I think like reflecting it in the physical world as well can be really powerful there. It's funny, like a lot of the time I talk about this in my master class on data on setting and managing with goals. Is back in the day, when people would do like data-driven sales management, they'd be like, oh yeah, like we have some like leaderboards up on like screens or whatever. Like no one will look at them, because like, so doing that and like pretending that you've like achieved the goal, that's not okay. But having those up in conjunction with bringing data and metrics into team meetings and one-on-ones and QBRs and so on and so forth, that's the right way to do it. You're consuming those metrics in those like operating rhythm meetings to make sure they're being consumed, but then you have it out in the real world as well, the non-virtual world, as a re-emphasis. That can be like, as people are walking around, they're like, oh, that's right, that is a reminder to me we are a data-driven organization. And I think the Gong thing kind of, how big is it?
It's pretty big. I mean, it's I would say it's 2 feet
All right, I'm
in
getting
diameter. And it's loud. You can hear it. We have, I think, 300 seats here, and you can hear it at every seat in the building.
I love it. All right, you've inspired me. That's gonna be my takeaway, my personal. Well, Chris, we're up on time here. This is absolutely fantastic. I love getting to hang out with you, talking about sales management, leadership. I was excited about talking about kind of like the finance selling and the non-technical selling, but rep motivation and management and things like that. I think like that's obviously near and dear to my heart and a lot of our audience as well. So I'm glad that we got into that. Next week, we're going to have another delightful sales leader with us, a gentleman named Brian Lawrence, who is the VP of sales at AirSlate. He was previously the head of sales at HelloSign. So go ahead and join us next week. Chris, you have an awesome weekend. I hope the Vols, wipe the floor with the Tigers, and that you and your wife have some lovely meals out while Palmer's playing around with the grandparents. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and enjoyed the time, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Okay. See you, Chris. Take care, man.
All right.